Hey guys, my name is Grant and I am a hypnotherapist for the center, and I'm currently teaching a course called Balance Trance every Wednesday evenings at the center. Basically just to help balance yourself out and to empower yourself to make the changes you want to make in your own life. Right now though, I'm going to do a little video on an insight that I had on consciousness, and how our consciousness is affected by the use of different substances. So let's check it out. Okay, so everything is going to be pretty simple, should be pretty easy to follow along. So basically here we have three types of thought patterns. We have a positive thought pattern in the green, a negative thought pattern in the red, and a neutral thought pattern in the orange. So quite simple. All right. And let's imagine that this little blue circle down here in the bottom left equals our consciousness or our attention or awareness, so whatever it is that we're paying attention to at any given moment. So let's imagine that our consciousness is in this positive thought. So as you can see, it's kind of on the outside edge of this positive thought here, and I truly do believe that the energy of our thoughts are spirally in nature. So if you're having a thought, it will literally, you spiral around with it. So in this case, you're spiraling with a positive thought, and it's able to pull you in closer and closer. So in this case, as I said, we'll do a little image of this. So this person's having a moderately positive thought as they're kind of spiraling outside around the edge of a positive thought pattern. And as I said, it's possible to go in more or deeper into a positive thought. So as you can see, the consciousness circle, your attention, so what you're paying attention to is it's more deeply in the spiral. So you'd be more into this thought, going a little quicker, it's deeper, you're deeper into the thought is basically all that picture represents there. And obviously it is possible to have negative thoughts, so your consciousness could spiral around in that type of thought. And you can also have a neutral thought that you could be paying attention to. So you might be thinking, well, this person is really in a neutral thought. Well, how can you have a very neutral thought? What this actually means is that the person has pretty much all of their attention and awareness in this neutral thought. So it doesn't mean that it's a very neutral thought, it just means that their attention is highly focused in this thought. So for example, imagine if you had a math exam tomorrow. Math is not really a positive or a negative thing for you, but you're incredibly focused in math, in the subject that you're paying attention to right now. So in this case, it just means that all of your attention is right in that type of thought. And maybe if somebody said your name, you wouldn't really hear them because you're so focused on that one thing. So let's add another layer to these pictures here, and we'll put up semi-permeable barriers. So basically this means that your consciousness or different things can kind of flow in and out of these types of thought patterns. So here we have, let's just do a little example here, and let's pretend maybe that somebody just lost their job. So they've been working at a job, they're currently unemployed right now, and they need to find work, and so they're just not really very happy about themselves. So they're in this negative thought pattern, but it is possible to, obviously, as we have these semi-permeable barriers, man, I'm going to try to say that. Semi-permeable barriers. It's possible for our consciousness to flow out of any type of thought into another thought. So it might be beneficial for this person to start thinking a little more positively. So let's pretend the pink arrow almost represents a friend. A friend comes along and says, you know what, man, like, I've known you for a long time, you're incredibly smart, you have a lot of potential, you can find another job, I know you can. So you can see his buddy's consciousness is starting to become a little more towards the positive end. But as I said, our thought patterns are spirally in nature, so it's easy to get pulled back. So you might say, no man, I'm never going to find a job, I'm being very dramatic right now, and you know, everything is hopeless. But this person isn't always stuck in these negative thoughts, so a really good friend would keep encouraging them, saying, you know what, I've known you for over 20 years, I might have already said that, but you know, I really believe in you, you've always been a good friend, you've always been a really hard worker, and I know that you can find the job that's right for you. Just give it a little time, man. And you know what, maybe Buddy starts believing. He's like, yeah, you know what, you're right, I truly believe I can find a good job. So this is just Just kind of showing you how we can shift the consciousness, our own consciousness, or even with the help of another. Okay, so let's go into another example. So here we see we have the positive and neutral thought patterns, just like before, and we'll put up the semi-permeable barriers just as before, but this time it's a little bit different. This scenario is a little different with the negative. We got a big negative thought pattern. So this person, you could say, might tend to think negatively, basically, is what this is. And notice this is going to be a little different here. This is important. Notice the barrier here around the negative thought pattern. So as you can see, it's a little thicker, so it's harder for things to kind of, once they get in here, it's harder for them to get out as they'll bounce inside, literally be stuck in the spiral. So if we put, so imagine if your consciousness was right here, it would have the tendency to get caught by the spirals of the negative and go in deep. So let's put our consciousness here. So this person is stuck currently in a negative thought pattern. And it could be quite difficult for this person to get out of the negative thought pattern, especially when their positive thoughts are quite small. Not small necessarily, but less robust. So in this case, this person really does tend to have negative thoughts. And now we'll put up a big old barrier around the green, positive types of thoughts. So as I said, now if the consciousness was floating around here, it would have the tendency to get pulled in here, and it would really have a hard time to get into the positive types of thoughts. But as I mentioned, it's possible that you can shift your consciousness through the use of substances. So let's pretend in this case that this person is taking an antidepressant, which does alter your brain and the way you think. So in this case, over time, it's possible for the antidepressant to make it more likely that this person would have a positive type of thought pattern, which would help eventually shift their consciousness out of this negative spiral that they can feel like they're in. And anybody who's ever been depressed or had, just stuck in a thought, it really is spirally in nature. You just keep getting pulled down and down and down. So over time, though, with an antidepressant, what it can do is it can help make it easier. It can help take you out of this deep, dark hole, basically. But it does take time. It can take weeks or even months for these things to kick in. And as you begin to get pulled over there, it makes it more and more possible for you to have a positive thought. So over time, it takes you out of those negative thoughts and brings you into a positive thought. And eventually, over time, it can make those negative thoughts seem less powerful over you. Anybody who I've ever talked to or read about who have been on antidepressants say when they take antidepressants, it makes them, it's like a Kickstarter. It makes them feel back to their normal selves. It makes things a little easier. The negative thoughts are still there, so the negative thought has not gone away, but they're just not as caught up in the negative thoughts as often. They're easier able to move their consciousness out of the negative thoughts or to not worry so much. And it's hugely important, I think, to explain at this point that the antidepressants basically serve a base for somebody to start working on themselves. It doesn't solve everything. So for whatever reason why this person had a large negative thought pattern in the first place, it could be partly because of their chemistry, but maybe something happened in their past that they have to resolve in order to truly overcome this type of thought pattern. And the antidepressant won't do that. What the antidepressant does is it gives you a solid base to work from to maybe then eventually tackle these issues that you might be dealing with at a deeper level. Okay, so here we have a similar type of pattern that we drew before, but in reality, we have many types of thought patterns. We have multiple positive thoughts, and we have multiple negative thoughts, and multiple, not meaningless, but neutral thoughts, unemotionally charged thoughts. I don't necessarily believe that our thoughts, all of our positive thoughts are grouped together and all of our negative thoughts are grouped together in the brain. Some definitely are. But what I truly do believe is that our thoughts, the spirally nature, I'm just going to emphasize this again. So if we start to have a little negative thought, I truly do believe that it's possible for this negative thought to cause us to have a little more negative thought, a little heavier, and it can pull us into a bigger one and a bigger one until we're literally spiraling into a bigger and deeper, darker thought pattern. And the same can go vice versa for positive thoughts as well. So let's place our consciousness in the middle of all of our potential thought patterns. So in this situation, literally our consciousness could be kind of pulled into to either direction. But again, we're talking about substances right now, so let's imagine that this particular substance really just takes away all of these barriers, so your consciousness is literally ready to float anywheres within the potential of your mind. So in this case, the person takes this substance and they start feeling good. They're like, man, life feels so good right now. Everything's beautiful. I love everybody, but like, there are still some bad things in the world, there's war and things, and before you know it, you start spiraling deep into this dark, negative part of your brain. So this is what would be characterized basically as somebody having a bad trip when they get pulled into these negative, deep, dark thought patterns. I mean, all the potential is there when you do take a substance that does open you up so much. And I'm going to move these words for a moment. So everything we've been talking about so far is happening within one individual. And as I've made this semi-permeable barrier representing an individual. So it's possible that outside factors can influence you, especially when you're so wide open like this, when your consciousness and your mind and your thoughts are wide open because of the use of a substance, for your outside influences to really impact you. And this is what's known as set and setting. So people, the type of people you're around, are you with friends, or are you with strangers, are you with 2 people, or are there 15 people? All of these things can spin your experience around in different ways. So the location, are you in an apartment building, or are you out in a park? Are you in the country, or are you in the city? Are there lots of cars? Are you at a party? All of these types of things can influence your experience. And there's literally an unlimited amount of factors that can come into here. You could have X factor and Y factor that can spin you this way, and even a Z factor. There is literally an infinite ocean amount of information that can come in from the outside that can influence you. And if all of your barriers are down like this, things can get overwhelming really fast, and you think, oh man, I'm starting to freak out over here. And yeah, you can get lost sometimes. Alright, so I think it's very important now to talk about substance abuse. So as I mentioned with the antidepressants, there's some benefits to the substances that can literally help show you something that was hard for you to experience as your consciousness was stuck in that negative. But when you go too far, you can definitely run into some problems. And I characterize, I think, in 2 types of problems. One is that you're chasing the high. So you take a drug and you feel great. Your consciousness moves into that positive frame. Everything is feeling good. So you just want to feel good. So you literally are chasing that high. But the thing with substances is that they are never as good as they were the first time. You always have to take more. And this is where things can become really dangerous really fast. And I think another characteristic is that some people, when they abuse substances, are numbing themselves. So if we imagine that big negative thought pattern that was up here earlier, somebody would be taking a substance just to kind of hide that. So they're not actually dealing with their problems, they're just numbing themselves so they don't have to face them. And those are 2 really scary, really dangerous things that can happen with any substance. So let's wrap things up here and kind of not jump to some conclusions, but talk about some conclusions about this. So a substance can be used as a temporary stabilizer, as we've seen with the antidepressant, but you truly do have to do the work on your own. It could be some type of combination of the 2. And this directly relates to what I've always said, is that substances are a window, not a door. So a substance of any kind can show you a certain thing, can show you a way, but it is not the answer. So you have to literally gain control and apply these insights in your sober life. So for example, I keep going back to the antidepressant. It can show you how things can be, but you do have to put in the work to help make that a reality in your sober life. And there are many ways to do this. Things like meditation and yoga can really help you harness your consciousness. So if we imagine that little blue circle, you can literally start to control your consciousness and awareness and move it into whatever type of thought you want to. Because we all have these negative thoughts and positive thoughts, and to just bombard yourself with positivity isn't always good. You can literally, that can be a numbing agent in itself. And ultimately, guys and girls and everybody, what's best for you. So trust your own body, trust your own gut, get as much information as you can. This is just my perspective on things and some insights I had. This is by far not at all the be all to end all, but gather information. Maybe certain antidepressants aren't right for you, maybe some are. Whatever it is your situation is, maybe meditation or yoga is not right for you. Just find what works best for you, and like when you're being healthy and when you're not. When you're doing something that's abusing and hurting you, and when you're not. So just be honest with yourself and find what works for you, and that is hands down the biggest advice I could give anybody. Alright, well, I hope you liked the presentation. By no means is this scientific facts, just some ideas that I've had and I want to present, just to put out there. It's literally things I think about all the time. So I just had a lot of fun with this presentation, but I hope this video helped. I hope you liked it, and yeah, thanks for watching, people.